Good evening, everyone. In continuation of Unit 2, we'll start with a new topic today. Alright, before I start, let me ask you a question. How can one improve one's communication skills? Yes, what you're thinking is right. The more you speak, the more fluent you are in the language, isn't it? Most of us think that, improving of communication depends on how much we speak, how longer we speak, how fluently we speak, isn't it? But most of us don't understand the fact that reading also improves one's communication skills. Yes, you heard me right. Even reading helps you improve your communication skills. So today's topic from the second unit is reading. And we're going to talk about reading and the techniques of improving one's comprehensive or comprehension skills. Alright, so let's start with the topic called reading. Alright, reading. If you have your textbooks, please turn with me to page number 40. 40 has reading for unit 2. Now the first subheading under reading is improving comprehension skills. Now what is comprehension skills? What is the meaning of the word comprehension? You must have heard this word when you were given a paragraph below which you have 5 questions. Yeah, that was called a comprehension paragraph or a comprehension passage. Now let me tell you something that is quite funny. Most of us do it, and even I did it. When a paragraph is given to you in an exam, we all definitely attempt that question because it's so simple. You only have to read the paragraph and answer the questions that are below the paragraph. So it was called comprehension passage. Now what happened in this comprehension passage? 5 questions are given after a paragraph of around 8 to 10 lines. And we, being very clever, very intelligent, what did we do? The first question's answer lied in the first line of the paragraph, isn't it? We never read the paragraph completely. We looked at the first question and looked at the first sentence in the paragraph because the answer was sure in the first sentence. The second sentence question's answer would be in the second or the third sentences. This was how we wrote our comprehension passages, isn't it? Now the word comprehension is given there because we need to understand what is given in the paragraph. That is why it is called comprehension paragraph, which means comprehension means to understand. You have to read the passage first, understand the passage first, and then answer the questions. But we used to save a lot of time. We were very clever, we used to work smartly. We never worked hard. Smart work was always, even then, in those days it was smart work. So this is what we did. So I'm trying to explain to you what is the meaning of the word comprehension. So here the topic is talking about improving your understanding skills. How can you improve your understanding skills when it comes to reading? When you read your paragraph that is given to you, how can you understand? How can you improve your understanding skills or comprehension skills? So if you look at the first point that is given here, it says helps us think in the new language. Now, when you are reading a paragraph, for example, when it comes to reading, as I was telling you in my earlier videos also, reading is a long lost hobby now. In our days, when we were studying, for us, the only hobby that we had in that time, we never had smartphones, neither did we have computers at that time. So we used to read to pass time. Reading was a favorite hobby for most of us. So we used to read and read a lot. Whatever we could lay our hands on, we used to read. And I remember, I used to read comics like Tinkle and Chanda Mama, and we used to enjoy, the enjoyment that you get now when you browse the net was even, the enjoyment that we had at that time was even more than what you are enjoying right now. So we used to read. We used to read a lot of magazines and newspapers. And as I said, whatever we could lay our hands on, we used to read. These days, we hardly read. We don't like reading at all, isn't it? It's a long lost hobby. So the first point that is being spoken about here is when you read, what happens to you? It helps us think in the new language. See now, all books, maybe a storybook, a textbook, or maybe a novel, or maybe a magazine, a newspaper, they all use different patterns of language. Now when I say different patterns, they're all written in the English language, but they use variety. Lot of new vocabulary is added. lot of new frames of sentences are added, and it depends. A storybook is different from the way a novel is written. A novel is different from the way a newspaper article is written. So when you read extensively, you learn different patterns of writing. You learn different patterns. You read different patterns. So the first point rightly says you learn a new language. A new language, the same English, but you learn different vocabulary. You learn synonyms. You learn synonyms which can be actually used when you are writing. So when you are reading extensively, what happens is you are learning a new language, which means you are learning varieties of the same language. So that is why it is very important for us to read. Now the second point, if you look at here, is helps us build better vocabulary, as I was telling you now. As I said, what the vocabulary that is used in a storybook is different from the vocabulary that is used in a novel. And the vocabulary that is used in a novel is different from what is used in a journal, or is different from what is written in a newspaper. So when you are reading all these types of articles, different methods and different ways of written articles, you are actually learning a lot of new vocabulary. See, when you are learning new vocabulary, do you know what happens? It adds to your language. It adds to your language. You start using that vocabulary even as you start speaking. So in the initially, what did I say? I said communication skills can be improved also through reading. Now what is improved here? You learn a new language, different methods, different patterns of writing a sentence. At the same time, you're also learning a lot of vocabulary which can be used in your day-to-day language, right? Whether it is in the written form, spoken form, or in the when you're reading it, right? And the third point that is given here to improve your comprehension skills is provides us models of good writing. Now you are seeing so much of good writing. When you are reading varieties of books and articles and magazines and journals and newspapers, as I said, you are going to see different. Now, for example, one storybook is different from the other storybook because the author who's writing that storybook is different. Now this author's style of writing is different and the other author's style of writing is different. So what happens here? You're learning how this author is written and how that author is written. And once you start learning this, you start inculcating it in your own language, right? And then the third point, let me repeat it. It says provides us models of good writing, which means you will learn different models of good writing techniques. You will learn how to write. You will not be monotonous. You will not bore your audience, when they read something that is written by you. Because, one article might be written in one frame of language. The second article that you are writing, you tend to differ because you've learned so much of language now. So your previous style of writing would be different from the second part that you are writing. Alright? And then the last point here speaks about enables comprehension and critical thinking. What does reading do? It enables comprehension. Comprehension means it enables your understanding skills. The more you read, the easier it becomes for you to understand. Now what happens when you keep on reading, extensive reading, actually you come across the same words or the same sentences or the same frames of sentences, which makes it easier for you to understand. In the initial stages, you might find it difficult, you might find it confusing, you might find it chaotic, but the more you read, what happens is you get habituated to that language, you get habituated to these new words, because when you come across new words and when you don't understand the meaning, what do? You tend to learn what is the meaning of that word, right? At the same time, you also tend to understand that the same word has many synonyms. In my previous class, I taught you synonyms and antonyms, isn't it? So you're going to learn different words, you're going to learn varieties of sentences, alright, sentence structure. All this is going to be easy for you to understand and learn when you're doing some extensive reading. So these are the 4 points through which you can actually improve your comprehension skills, which is your understanding skills. When you follow these 4 points that I just spoke to you, you can actually improve your understanding. It will be easier for you to understand. When you are reading the passage itself, once you become habituated, once you become an habitual reader, it will become easier for you to understand the words and the sentences that you are reading in the paragraphs. Alright. Now coming to the second point here. Yeah. The second point here talks about techniques for good comprehension. Now we are going to learn techniques, which means how can you, comprehension is how can you understand something better. Alright? How can your understanding go to that level of good understanding? When can this happen? Now there are a few techniques that you have to follow. Now I'm going to put a few words on the board. These are the words that will actually help you with your comprehension becoming good. Alright? So the first word which comes here is prediction. Prediction. The second word is inference, and the third is facts and opinions. Okay, so these 3 points, prediction, inference, facts and opinions, are actually techniques of good comprehension. Now, when you use these in your reading, it actually helps you to understand the passage better. Now, look at the first one, prediction. For example, you are reading a book, right? Okay, let me give you even more easier examples so that it will relate to your reading of a book. You're watching a movie, right? And even as you're watching the movie from the beginning, and by the time you have to break for an interval, you are actually predicting what's going to happen in the interval, after the interval, right? Isn't it? Depending on what you have just seen, isn't it? So maybe this is going to happen, maybe that is going to happen, maybe the hero is going to get married, or maybe the hero is going to die. There are so many predictions that you make depending on what you watched until the interval. Don't we all do this? Yes, we all do it, isn't it? When you are watching a movie, you do it. The same thing happens when you are reading a book, right? When you are reading a book, when you read the first few pages of the book, your mind is already predicting what could happen next. So this is one of the techniques for you to understand a passage better, right? To make your comprehension good. Now, it is not mandatory that your prediction is always right. But then you are left to think, isn't it? You are thinking constantly, you are thinking even as you are reading. So prediction is what might happen next is something that is already in your mind. You're already working on it. You're reading it there, but something else is happening in your mind. That is predicting is nothing but forecast. What is going to happen in the future? When you are thinking about this, it is actually a technique for good comprehension skill. That is predicting. Now inferencing. Inferencing, if you look at your textbook guys, this point is there on page number 41. Now what is inferencing? Inferencing is a conclusion reached depending on what you have read or depending on your own reasoning. Alright? Inferencing is, you have read a few things. So reading the facts that are there in the passage, you are inferencing. Inferencing, which means implying. You are already implying, okay, this sentence means this. This fact means this. Or when you're looking at a fact and the reason that is given behind the fact, you're trying to imply, okay, this might be what is going to happen in the passage. That is inferencing. Inferencing means you're trying to understand the passage depending on the facts and the reasoning that you have read in the passage. So this is another technique of improving your comprehension skills. Alright, this is one other technique. Alright, this helps you understand the passage better. And what did I talk about as a third point? Here it talks about facts and opinions. Now what are facts? Facts are something that is truthful and that can be proved. That is a fact. It is a fact. Okay, let me give you an example. The fact is the sun rises in the east. Yeah, can I prove it? I can prove it tomorrow morning when the sun rises from the east. So it is a fact, it is truth, and you can prove it, right? So those are facts. And then what is opinion? Opinion is your idea, your view about what you have read in the passage. So facts and opinions, when you're reading an article, when you're reading a book or a magazine or a textbook or whatever it is, you have to look at the facts. What is the truth? And sometimes when you're reading the passage, you are actually framing your own opinions about the author or about the story. Sometimes when you're reading the story, you feel that's your opinion. Is this something that happened with the author? Is this the author's story? Is this the author's experience? That is when the author isn't telling you anything about it. He's just writing something for you to read and you are trying to, frame your own opinions on it, right? So facts and opinions are also techniques of good understanding skills or good comprehension skills. So let's go in detail about the first one, which is prediction. It's on page number 40. What does prediction tell you here? It says, while reading to be able to predict the content and make inferences are very useful skills. That is, forecast what's going to happen, or inferences, try to understand what the author is trying to tell you by reading the facts and the opinions there. Alright? So inferences are very useful skills. Prediction involves thinking ahead while reading. As I told you, even as you are reading, you are thinking what is going to happen next. And you are already predicting, okay, this would happen next. Sometimes, you are already predicting, you are 100% sure that this is going to happen. There is a twist in the story. There is a twist in that article. It's totally against your prediction. That actually inculcates a lot of interest, in you to read the passage. Because your prediction went wrong, you would like to read more and more. You would like to know what's going to happen next. What is the author trying to tell you? So these are the benefits or advantages of prediction. And then, yeah, prediction involves thinking ahead while reading. We use images, titles, subtitles, text, and our own personal experiences to predict what information an article contains. In case of stories, we use the initial sequence of events to predict what happens next, which helps us make a connection between what we are reading and what we already know. Sometimes when you are reading a book and you make the correct prediction, you feel so proud of yourself, don't you? You feel elated. Yes, I knew this, isn't it? Sometimes, you back the book and say, yes, I knew this. So that is the benefit of prediction. It makes you, so happy that you already know what it is. Now, prediction is not just making you happy, it also is showing how interested you were while reading that particular article. You were completely involved in it. You were not thinking of things around you or the world around you. You were totally concentrating and focused on what you were reading, and so you were able to predict it. And as I said, if your prediction is right, you're very happy about it, isn't it? And then the next line says, this improves our experience. Now this here means prediction. It improves your experience of reading as we understand the text better and can engage with it in a more productive manner. See, once your prediction is right, you tend to, even be even more interested and even more focused. Your interest in reading that article, increases. You don't want to put that book away because, you predicted something right. So let me continue reading. Now you're looking for more, chances of predictions. Looking at the subtitles, looking at the images, looking at whatever you read, prediction becomes easy. Alright? So this is the first technique of improving your comprehension. Now, as I said, the second one is already here. It talks about inference. Now, what is inference? If you have a book and a pen, please write down the meaning of the word inference. Inference means a conclusion reached on the basis of, inference means the conclusion reached on the basis of evidence or reasoning. Evidence is proof. Reasoning, the reason that is, behind that particular line or those few lines that is written. That is inference. Now, inference, I'll just read this for you. It says, inferencing is another useful reading skill. The information in some reading texts is implied and not directly stated. Now, sometimes when you're reading, the author wants you to read in between the lines, which means the meaning is not on the surface. It is not apparent. It is not clear. These days, comprehension passages are that way. You have to inference. You have to read the passage, understand the passage, and understand the underlying meaning. The meaning is not apparent, it is not clear, it is not on the surface. You have to, in order to understand something, you have to read it thoroughly. You have to read it with a lot of focus. Only then you can understand. So inferencing is that. Inferencing is understanding the underlying meaning. What is the author trying to tell you depending on the evidence that you have been reading, depending on the reasoning that the author is giving you. That is interference. Inferencing, alright? So inferencing is understanding the underlying meaning, alright? Now, there might be passages which even you at this level, the engineering level, you are given a passage of around 8 to 10 lines, which is very simple in the language, not complicated, no, technical vocabulary or jargons used, very simple, plain English language. You are reading the sentence, you're very happy that these answers are very easy to write. But suddenly the question is asking you the meaning of a particular word in that particular situation. Now the meaning is not given there. Alright? You have to read that passage now. Once you are asked for a meaning, what should you do? You have to go back to the passage, read it again and again to understand what is the meaning of that particular word in that particular situation that is given to you. That is inferencing. Alright? So understanding the underlying meaning by what you have read in the passage. Fine? That actually helps you, or is one more technique of good comprehension skills. Now if you go to the next page, which is on page number 42, here you have another technique which is given here, which talks about facts and opinions. What did I say is a fact? If you look at the text there, it is given in a blue colored box. Let me start with the first line. The ability to read purposefully and critically can be developed through various techniques. To begin with, any reader must be able to distinguish between facts and opinions. Now, the first line, if you look at the first line once again, read it. It says the ability to read purposefully. Purposefully, you are reading with a purpose. What is the purpose of your reading? Are you trying to find out something? Are you trying to locate something? Are you trying to understand something? So what is your purpose? That is one thing. And another thing is, it's not just purposefully, it is also critically. Critically, which means, now what is critically? You should be able to give your opinion on that particular topic, which means you have to be critical. You have to give your own opinion, your own view. Critically, you have to examine that passage. According to you, what do you think the author was trying to tell? According to you, what do you think is the idea behind this passage? So these are two things that happen, and how would they happen? Through facts and through opinions. Now if you look at the meaning that is given here for a fact, it says, it is a statement that can be proved. As I said, the sun rises in the east is a fact which can be proved the very next day when the sun rises in the east. That is a fact. Alright? And then opinion is your view or your opinion on the passage that you have just read. So facts and opinions also help you to understand a passage better. So these are the 3 points that are techniques of good comprehension. Alright, so as I said, let us review this once again. The first is prediction, the second is inferencing, and the third is facts and opinions. Alright, so this was about helping you to read a passage and understand a passage. Alright, the first 4 points that I discussed, and the techniques are, which are 3 here, which I have discussed. They are on page number 40, 41 and 42, in which you also have 2 exercises, 2 tasks which have to be read and done. So I suggest that you read those passages that are given for you to read them, and also write try writing or answering the questions after the passage. In my next video, I'm going to talk about different types of letters. Alright, I'm going to teach you the formats of writing different types of letters in my next video. Thank you so much.